Tino, I have to ask you, was there ever a turning point in this Heartland Hoops Classic when it took off in your mind, or were you pretty well satisfied from the green light in 2008 that it was going to be successful?
Well, I mean, it was a successful first run at it. You know, I don't think the crowds piled in as much in that first year. It was still new. I mean, people probably had a lot of question marks still. But in that first year, we had Archbishop Bergen versus Ainsworth, and so you had Wes Eichmeyer and Jesse Carr. And at the time, Nebraska as a whole hadn't been blessed with a lot of Division I basketball talent, and so we had the two most recent play in that first one. In year two, Jake Hamburger was a part of the Ralston game with St. Cecilia that had two Division I players on Ralston, and St. Cecilia won that game. And I think at that time it gained some momentum, and then obviously when Oak Hill came in 2013, that probably put it to a different level as far as what type of event it was. I mean, it became less of an area, central Nebraska event, to more of a statewide and even a national type deal. So I'd say 2013 put it over the top, although those other games and those other years really, one of my favorite games in the history is Axtell Ewing. I think I mention that every year.
Yeah, you bet.
That was a great game, and that was in year three. But no, I mean, all those games kind of led up to 2013 becoming the biggest event we had.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, Tino. Once you get somebody like Oak Hill in here, do you think you spoil the people if there would ever be a time when the time arrived where you couldn't find somebody to come in like that? Do you think it would hurt the crowds? Do you think people come to expect that? I don't personally, because I haven't seen it happen.
Well, I mean, it's two things. I mean, the reason why we've been able to do that is because we've had Omaha Central and Omaha South.
Right.
And this year we got a Papillion La Vista team that has a couple of divisions. So, I think as long as Nebraska is able to produce teams and talent like that, that'll dictate whether we're going to be able to keep. I mean, I'm not going to bring Oak Hill Academy in to see somebody get beat by 30 or 40 points. That's not good for anybody. So as long as there's teams like that in Nebraska, we'll make the effort to do it. I personally don't get any maybe more satisfaction out of the Oak Hill Omaha Central matchup as I would an Axtell Ewing. And so for me as a high school basketball fan, as long as they're good games, I'm in it. I mean, I would rather see a really good high school game than an NBA game, to be quite honest with you. So that's just where it's at for me as a fan. And so the event, again, I think will dictate to itself what types of matchups we'll get.
I get that question all the time, and there's your answer right there. So
and I think it's a great point he made, and you too, is that you can have a concert and the Rolling Stones are there, but people still want to go and listen to the other bands and play. They want the scenery that they maybe didn't go just for the Rolling Stones, and you could have an NBA game. You could get them in. They're not there just for that. They're really there for their own high school team. And once they get there, they'll stick around and maybe they'll go enjoy Grand Island. They'll spend some money in town, and they might skip a game, but then they can go back. It's just like the state tournament. That's the way the state tournament actually is too.
I just wondered if you brought two non-Nebraska teams in, if it would sell as well. I don't think it would myself.
It wouldn't. I mean, I've talked with Tony Dorado. He's the national Nike high school rep that decides whether you're a Nike school or not. And I talked to him about it. He came out both times Oak Hill came, and we were working on some different things as far as a 1 versus 2, like an Oak Hill versus Findlay Prep. And he finally, and off of his advice, he just said, Tino, it won't draw. Because I've seen this in other towns and in other places, and you'll have 2 of the top 5 teams in the country playing, and the gym will be empty.
Yep.
And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the Dix Nationals,
That's right,
and we're sitting there on Thursday and Friday with the top 8 teams in the country, and bleachers are pulled out of one side of a high school gym, and it's not even full. And so I understood. It really hit home when I went to that event what he was talking about. I mean, and I tried telling everybody around town and people that want to try to do an event is you're still talking about high school basketball.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
So we're probably tapping out what we can get out of it. I mean, we're getting the crowds. It's sustained momentum, but you know, with the exception of a state basketball tournament, you're still just talking about high school basketball.
Exactly.
Well, there's a pride factor, I think, in Nebraska too. It's, can our schools compete with national power? So you got Central, you got Oak Hill. Last year's game, Omaha South and Overland, from a basketball standpoint, two extremely well-coached teams, two disciplined teams, two tough teams, two teams with really good athletes. And so the ability for those Nebraska teams to compete with those national powers, it's a lot of pride for the fans, the people here, win or lose. I mean, all the games have been close. They've been hard fought. And so people walk away saying, Nebraska is a small state, but we got kids that can play in this state as well.
I've got
It gives the fans a rooting interest. I mean, if you brought a 1 and 2 in, you're not going to know anybody, but at least here you can say that this is a Nebraska team, and it gives you a team to root for, and you do get to see some quality basketball out of everybody on the court too. So
I'm going to go.
And I think we've seen that with Nebraska football, where the Nebraska football is going to get 90,000 people. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. It really is. Who we play. But you bring in 2 NFL teams to Lincoln and play an exhibition game, and it's 50,000. But you know what you have to do? You got to pay them. I mean, so try to imagine. I mean, like we're talking about, we're going to have to pay Oak Hill, and you're going to have to pay. But some of these schools, they come in, and there's not the expense there is with like we're talking about the Rolling Stones. I mean, I don't care how many people from Grand Island show up to the concert. You probably lose some money that day.
I'm going to, before we close this segment, I'm going to put everybody on the spot here. This is a mean thing to do. I'm going to go right to left because you're a wise man, Mr. Gators. The first time Oak Hill came out and they played Omaha Central. Is that correct? Yes. I believe, is that right? Okay. In your mind, before that game started, did you think Omaha Central could compete? Now, this is going to be a great answer because both of you guys over here are smart people as coaches, as is Tino. What did you think?
I thought they could compete. I did not think they would win the ball game. I'm going to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
Because you look at a school like Oak Hill, guys that don't play at Oak Hill are Division I players. Like go to Division I schools and play.
Yeah.
And so you're looking, Coy Gow and the Scott kid and, Trey Dion and those guys playing on Omaha Central. You're thinking they can compete, but for how long and what will the final be? But I would be lying to you if I told you I thought Omaha Central was going to win the contest outright. But again, that goes back to that pride thing. Coach Barron's had his team ready. Those kids played for the entire state, and they're representing the entire state against a team that's at the top of USA Today rankings in Oak Hill consistently. So
that's a great. How about as a kid, man?
Well, and I would kind of go along the same lines as Coach Gavers, and on a lesser scale, that kind of, he talks about Omaha Central representing the state, and then you talk about the lower classes, the Axtels, the Loop, St. Cecilia's. We feel like, we represent all of the smaller classes against the bigger classes. So it's just kind of on a different level with the Oak Hill and the Central. You got 2 top teams in terms of population in the school, and then you got your smaller class teams who then feel like they represent the lower half of the state with population in schools against the Class Bs and the Class As. So
I didn't know personally. How about you? Because
I didn't think they would either, but when you look back on it, Omaha Central, they had that on their schedule the whole time, and that was their big game.
Yep.
Oak Hill Academy, that was just another game for them. So, I mean, they could go in looking at that, we're going to bring our A game here. But, again, I didn't think they would come out and win that game, no.
How about you, Jimmy? Did you?
Well, I think that's well said right there about the schedule. Omaha Central would not have the same record if they played Oak Hill Academy's schedule. We know that. But in all athletics, there's always that one time. That's why why you like to play. That's where that you have that opportunity. Hey, you know what? If we play at a 90% level, we could probably beat this team on the road. Now, if we played a 50% level and they played a 90% level, this thing's going to get out of hand. So I agree with you. You just don't know in athletics. You really don't know. I mean, you can get fired up for a game, but it doesn't necessarily mean. And there's been times where neither team played that well, but it still was a competitive game.
Boy.
But both teams just didn't really. Neither one of them had their A game, but they found a way to compete. They were trying. The ball didn't go in the hole very good for them.
The thing, how about you, T? Of course, I won't put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, I have the luxury or the ability to talk to Steve Smith ahead of time, and so Omaha Central that year had a common opponent with Oak Hill. Omaha Central went to that tournament in Florida.
That's right.
And they beat them narrowly, and Oak Hill Academy beat them not soundly, but it was a 10-12 pointer, and so they had a common opponent. They had film of one another. And Steve Smith, you know, when he got to town and we were talking those 2 days they were out, he knew it was going to be a dogfight.
Wow.
Okay, so going into it, I had that. I will say the second time they came out, I didn't think Omaha South would stay with them very long. And in fact, on the way back to the airport, Steve Smith and I were talking, and he finger pointed to one thing, and that was Bruce Chubbuck Sr. as the reason why he had him well prepared and that. So you know, whether I think it or not, I mean, I have the luxury of getting inside information from Oak Hill's coach when he's out here and what his thoughts are. And so I did think that it'd be a good game.
Well, terrific point, because they did have that common opponent, and as you know, Bill said, they did have some talent on an Omaha Central team, and they had it together that year. And I thought they could, and they did well in Florida. The biggest mismatch to me appeared to be Omaha South and Oak Hill. And
Well, if you just look at the size, I mean, Omaha South's biggest guy was 6'6", and Oak Hill came out with 2 7-footers, 6'10", 6'11". I mean, you look at just sheer size alone, you were thinking, well, how's this going to work out? So.
The thing that I noticed, tell me if I'm wrong, either side here, is one of the things that Oak Hill, I hope I'm not off on this thing, were they expecting that kind of defense from either Omaha Central or Omaha South? They looked like they were shocked to me. They looked like they actually, I don't know, did not expect that kind of defense? I think that's what kept Omaha South in the game. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, defense, I mean, just by the total, the final and the score, defense definitely dictated on both sides. But I think the one thing they were probably surprised with was the physicality of Omaha South.
That's right.
And the fact that they just didn't back down.
Nope.
And then Coach Chubbuck, he knew their sets, he knew their stuff, and they were prepared to defend those. And I think as you watched Omaha South play on in both last year and the year before, you know, they won that state title last year on the defensive end. And so I think the physicality is probably the one thing where he was surprised the most with how Omaha South really bodied them up and played physically.
That's what it looked like to me anyway.